Welcome, Reno. My name is Phil MacDougall. I'm your host of What Drives Reno, and I'm extremely excited today because we have Congressman Amodei here with us today. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thanks for the invite, Phil.
Really appreciate it. I'm going to go through the basic interview with you, but we're just here to talk. The biggest question, though, everyone has to answer when they sit down is, what was their first car? And almost everybody remembers what their first car was, and if there's a story you want to share.
It was a graduation gift from high school. I graduated from high school in 1976. 69 Chevrolet Chevelle, two-door. I called it the Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. model. Chevrolet Motor Division hubcaps, white, black top, 307 engine. And so I went right to work on, okay, we got to get Krager rims and Dunlop GT qualifiers and some air shocks in the back. Go to Spraycraft in Reno and get it painted metallic black to match the top, and all that stuff. And I was just in love.
But see, isn't it funny? Almost everybody, a lot of people don't remember what they had for breakfast, but they remember their first car. Yeah. And just like you smiled right away when I told you, because it brings back a good memory. Yep. Independence, your first car, and any stories you want to share about that?
Well, I had two of them. I had that one, and then I had a 72. And then I was going to give you a bad time. I'm looking in the parking lot when I came in this morning. I'm going, not many trucks out here. I mean, what the heck about the truck folks,
we have a lot.
Yeah,
we have a lot.
No,
it's early. We just opened.
I know you do. But anyhow, they say don't love something that doesn't love you back. But I'm pretty sure, I drove over today, and the last year they made the two-door Blazers. Mm-hmm. Chevrolet calls them Tahoes then. But that was 1999. That's my newest vehicle. And it's the nicest one in town. Just got it repainted after 24 years at the time. Put a crate engine in it just because it was like, hey, I love it. It's running great. Put the same Vortec engine in it. Keep going. It has 380 some odd thousand miles on it, but looks very, very nice if I can say so myself.
Yes, everybody remembers their first car. And it's funny because you talked about the trucks. We have a lot of volunteers here, and literally we couldn't stay open without the volunteers. We're open every day of the year except for 3.
Right.
And most of we're probably 13 or 14 full-time staff. The rest are volunteers, and most of them have big trucks. So I pull up. The big joke is I'll pull up in my wife's car. It's a little Honda Fit, and I have between these two big trucks, and I'm a big guy, and I get out, and I still get the last 5 years later making fun of me. So I got to upgrade, I think.
That's great about your volunteers.
Yeah.
The first time I went to the Harrah's Automobile Museum, when it was out by the railroad yards, it was my Boy Scout troop was on a field trip, and so the history here is phenomenal, and it's a great success story that when inevitably change happens, that Reno was able to basically preserve that because nobody else has that. So. Yeah. Well, hats off to you and your predecessors and the folks that are making it happen.
Did you ever meet Mr. Harrah?
I never did.
No. He had 1,500 cars back then.
Well, he had some airplanes,
boats.
Everything.
Yeah, he had everything at 15. And it's funny, just a little history. You probably already know this, but tell me if this would happen today. So when Mr. Harrah passed away, his cars were part of the Harrah business.
Right.
They weren't a private personal entity. So when Holiday Inn purchased his cars, they were starting to auction them all off. The community got together and said, you can't do this. Yeah. The city said, well, if we'll donate the land, this land here, if you raise the money to build a museum. And Holiday Inn said, if you get the land and you raise the money for the museum, we'll give you 175 of the cars. Be a little harder to have happen nowadays, you think?
Yeah, it would.
So Dick Clark came in, had this big fundraiser with all the stars, raised the money, the community got together, and 35 years later, we're still enjoying it. And we're really proud because people forget, right in our backyard here in Nevada, we were voted top 5 automobile museum in the entire country, and TripAdvisory just voted us #1 favorite place to visit in Reno. So
that's cool.
We're making a difference. We're still strong. We're still staying strong.
No, and it's great that we figured out, the folks that were involved, how to put those pieces together so that that stays here and still is here. So
and now
hats off.
Yeah, thank you. And it's really give the tribute to the board because the board had the vision. Now, people don't remember that we're here, unfortunately. So we're always trying to remind people we're here, but we're a full event center. We just had Governor Lombardo here for a speaker series. We have events and weddings, celebrations of life. Actually, we have 257 events a year out of 365 days. So we're really making a difference. So enough from my infomercial. Let's get into you.
Yes, sir.
So my biggest question is, when did you, I got to go right back to the beginning. What inspired you to get into politics and to run for Congress?
Well, you talk about the community and how you're here still. I grew up in Carson. The Carson I grew up in was 10 to 20,000 people, 60, 70 sort of thing. And so when you grow up, and even though Reno was larger, it's the same thing here. You have role models. You have people that are in public service. Public service back in those days was a neat thing. It's like, oh, there's the mayor, or the legislature's in session, that sort of stuff. So you grew up around that stuff. Not that you necessarily aspired to it, but you had a whole community chipping in all sorts of different ways. Somebody did coach youth sports. Somebody else did, the board of supervisors or whatever. So you were surrounded by that, and it was seen as, giving back to your community was not that's a footnote somewhere, or that's for some people. Everybody did in one way or another. They were building Governor's Field when I was like 8 years old or something. And so you had guys that worked for the power company that were out help putting up the lights. Other folks were building bleachers. I mean, it was just everybody pitches in. So as you got older, it was like, well, you're going to pitch in too, of course, because you're part of the community. And then one thing led to another. You find yourself saying, okay, I'll give this a try in terms of throwing your name in the hat. I mean, let's be honest. It's even back then. It's easier not to do it, but if you care about your community or want to be a part of something that's positive, I mean, that's kind of how I'm just like, well, okay, if you've got the ability, and there's some folks that think maybe it's a good idea, let's give it a try. And then one thing led to another.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you very much for all you've done. What would you tell yourself? You probably heard all these questions a million times, but is there one particular thing that comes to mind? What would you tell yourself right when you're getting into politics? If you only knew then what you know now, is there one thing that jumps out at you? Probably a few.
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, some is like, if you think you're going to make money at it, you need a new financial plan. If you think it's ego building, then you need to get some counseling about that. I think I already said, it's if you care about getting the policy right in a leadership sense, then it's great. I tell a lot of people, I love the work. So there's some days where you don't think much of the culture, but still, it's like, well, if you don't do it, what's that English guy's name from way back said, bad things happen when good people do nothing. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like I'm a great person or anything like that, but it's like I told people, I go, I hope on a good day I'm a normal person. And you need normal people involved in that stuff. And it may be elected office, it may not be. There's different ways to do that. But it's like, listen, if you think the mission, if you will, is important, then you should go for it.
Yeah, maybe I'm just getting a little sentimental or whatever the right word is, but I just think seemed like it was a lot easier 15, 20, 40 years ago. I look back at like Reagan and Tip O'Neill.
Yeah.
They went at it, but afterwards you hear stories, they had a beer. It just seems a lot different nowadays. And maybe it's always been like that. Every generation thinks it's a little harder than maybe it is.
Phil, everything evolves. So it's not the same as it was as the speaker and the president. But I'll tell you this. I have good friends that are colleagues back there that are Democrats. Oh, my God. And it's like, well, listen, we don't vote the same way, but we respect each other and we talk. But let me tell you what, Phil, that's like writing a story about all the planes that land safely. Mm-hmm. You've heard that before.
They don't want to hear about those. It doesn't make headline news.
That's a nice little footnote or whatever, but we're going to do the ones where somebody's shaking their fist or what's that old thing? if it bleeds, it leads, and
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff.
And that's what frustrates a lot of people nowadays. It's challenging because you just said it. If something is going to get maybe a headline, they want to focus on that in general. And there's so many good things. I have a lot of people personally that I completely disagree with them, but I learn something every time. And I'm not saying that they are wrong. I'm just saying we have a difference of
and it
opinion.
doesn't make them evil people.
No, that's the part where I think that's a minority of people who seem to have big voices, but they speak the minority. The minority of people feel that way.
But Phil, we're sitting here talking on a podcast, and it's like, hey, most people's source of news, especially at the national level, is electronic. There's still newspapers around, just like
Yeah.
we still have the Gazette-Journal here and the Appeal down in Carson and the Record-Courier and Minden-Gardnerville and stuff. But that's, those people who used to sit there like this in the morning with their cup of coffee or when they got to the office, those folks are on the significant decline.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, I said, I mean, take your news or your information however you want, but think about taking it with a grain of salt.
Right.
Anyhow.
I agree. So you've been in office for 15 years.
Yeah.
Is there one or two things that jump out that you're most proud of?
We kind of took the fire hose and tried to do as much as we could with it. We did some great things for veterans that I'm proud of. We got the Vietnam Helicopter Pilots Association came to me like probably 7-8 years ago. Hey, we want to put a memorial in Arlington. Okay. And he's like, well, what's a memorial? These days, a memorial is 1 foot wide, 6 feet long. You put your thing up that whatever. They represented about 10% of the casualties in the Vietnam War. And their proposal was men, women, all branches of the service. So there's not an Army one or an Air Force one or whatever. Here you go. And I go, no brainer. I went to the folks who were running Arlington at the time. It's like, no. We're in the graves business, not the memorial business. And obviously, it's hard to find space back there.
Right.
And long story short, it was like there's memorials all over the place back here. And so they were like, no. So I had to introduce a bill to say, hey, we got to make them do it. Small world, guy that I went to school with at the university, went through ROTC with, Mark Yetter. Very successful guy we both went through the ROTC program here. Mark ended up as a 2-star general in the Corps of Engineers. And the Corps of Engineers, you don't get higher than a 3-star. And so anyhow, I'm talking to him. Our moms went to high school together. So I'm talking to him going, hey, I'm having some trouble with this. Unbeknownst to me, in his last job as a general officer in the Corps of Engineers, he ends up talking with the lady who was the incoming in charge of Arlington. And he mentions it like, hey, these guys or whatever. She calls the group up, says, I'd like to meet with you. Boom, gets done. And you're just sitting there going, great friend, college classmate, whatever. And so I got invited to speak when they dedicated it. And you're in the amphitheater at Arlington. It's like, wow. I mean, phenomenally humbling. Yeah. Whatever the heck. These folks were incredibly grateful. But, the Vietnam War was the war that I grew up watching on TV. I was a little too young. Something I don't get to say very often these days. But I was a little too young for that. But that was the war that was on TV while you were sitting in the living room, as a junior high and high school guy.
Right.
So that's, we've done lands bills, we've done stuff that, all of it that we're phenomenally proud of. But that was one of the most humbling and kind of down-to-earth things where it's like you put a bunch of pieces together instead of, well, really, what about me? It was like, hey, us was a good thing that day.
See, it's another good example of you sit there, your first answer is no, but there's always a way to get it, and it's connections. It's people who can have the same vision. You don't take no for an answer.
Yep, front door, side door, back door.
Just help move it forward. A lot of times, just the red tape slows you down. A lot of people just give up.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you. And talk about some of your legislation. What in your career? What is the issues you've been most passionate about?
Well, we've tried to concentrate, and people go, "My God, it's a mess back there," whatever. And I says, "Well, it's a pretty divisive time, but if you concentrate on Nevada, there's plenty of opportunity." And so we've done everything from, hey, how are you treating the airport up here? Although we didn't worry about where the lines were. We've done work for McCarran. We do work for Reno, Tahoe. We've done veteran stuff. We've done stuff that's related to infrastructure to make sure that cities and counties have a little help here or there on that sort of stuff. We've done stuff immigration related to make sure that that's, which has been a challenge the whole time. But you try to find the spots where it's like, well, we can move the needle on the dial a little bit here on this issue or that issue. And two of the things, Phil, everybody goes, well, how do you vote? It's like, really the office is three things. It's constituent services,
Right.
it's oversight of federal agencies, and then it's how you vote. So we've got a phenomenal record of taking care of those people who call us up for help on, just yesterday when I was getting ready to leave, a lady that I know stopped in and said, hey, I know this guy who didn't get his medals. Actually, it's from the Vietnam War. I go, I'll give it to Debbie in my office. That's one of the things that we pay her for. Get that stuff done right. Constituent services, help with Social Security, help with the IRS, help with the Veterans Administration. When we first started, the claims office here had an awful reputation in terms of how long it took them. That's long in the rearview mirror. They've been doing a good job over there. You never say mission accomplished, but it's like you get up every day and turn that crank. The same with oversight of federal agencies, where most recently, new administration comes in, cancels a bunch of grants, and we're like, wait a minute, we want to know why you canceled it. If there was a good reason, okay, but if there wasn't, who made the decision, and what the heck here? So it just comes across as, like I refer to the fire hose, but it's like those three things have kept us pretty well employed. 14 people between D.C. and here, 6 out here, 8 in D.C., and we think we give the folks of Nevada and the country a pretty good bang for their buck.
Well, I'll give you a compliment because several people have come to me over my tenure here in town, and they come up with a variety of different issues, and they're frustrated about certain things. And I've suggested contact your office, and they go, "No, why would I ever contact? He's too far above. They didn't want to hear about this kind of stuff." And I said, "Absolutely not." And they called me back, and they were so complimentary of your office for one, getting back to them, and in many cases, it was just a phone call that got fixed or addressed.
Yeah.
And most people, I feel, don't think that that's a viable route to go. They don't want to bother your office, but you're representing us, and you're either going to tell us who to talk to or give us an answer. And most time, especially at the museum, don't you just feel better when someone takes the time to listen to you?
We don't
That goes a
have-
long way.
What's it called? Office, when you call and it's like, if you're looking for this, press 1 or this, and it's all automated. No offense to that, but it's like, that was one of the things, like, they're not going to have to navigate a whatever. A real person answers the phone, refers you to another real person who you talk with. I mean, during COVID, we did a ton of work that was like, well, that's really state. It's like, I'm not telling people to call the state and sicken them on the state, folks. It's all hands on deck. We'll work with the state, but it's like, all hands on deck. Let's get the problem solved.
It makes a big difference. It really, really does. And the feedback I'll give you and your team is really positive because the people that I've referred to called me back and said, I cannot believe they got back to me. I got an answer quickly. I never would have thought to go that route. So it's a testament to your team. And that whole, again, some people love it, that whole button takes you to 3 takes you back to 1, you finally just hang up. That stuff just frustrates me to no end.
I attribute part of our success over the 15 years because the people of Nevada have been very good to me in an election sense. But I'd like to think it's because we've earned it.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like, treat people like you'd want to be treated if you were in their shoes.
So over your tenure again, Congress has changed. What, in your opinion, has been the biggest changes, or can you address Congress versus when you first started versus now?
I mean, you asked me, so I'm going to tell you what I think.
Yeah.
I think the media culture has a lot to do with it. And listen, I'm not against the internet. I mean, I love what is it, eBay, when I'm looking for old parts or this. So I mean, they're a phenomenon. But I can tell you this: that instant gratification culture, and those are my words, but it's like, listen, the electronic folks got about this long to tell the story. And so they got to figure out, okay, here's what I think the story is, here's how I deliver it, boom, boom, boom. I don't think they've done anybody who's, why can't it be like the old days? And it's like, well, a big reason why it's not like the old days is the national electronic media is, I mean, listen, and I get it. They got bills to pay and everything else too. I understand that. I respect it. But if you're looking for, first of all, we're all human beings, so there's no true objectivity. But it's like, forget objectivity. Everybody's in the, seems like they're in the can one way or the other. They're advocates. It's not news stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm upset. It's like, listen, what's the Irish prayer since we got St. Patrick's Day coming up? God grant me the serenity to recognize those things I can't change or something. It's the reality you live with. So, but listen, as long as people's main source of information is that sort of medium, then guess what? You're not going to get many stories on where the best deal on Girl Scout cookies are this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. And people ask me, why do you start a speaker series? I started a speaker series just to help spread the news and to educate people, because I am not looking forward to, in any shape or form, all the commercials are going to start hitting this summer. Every radio is just going to be overwhelming. And I tell some people, whether agree with me politically or not, I got to stay neutral, but I go, if you're going to base your decision based on that 15-second soundbite, that 9 times out of 10, both parties take a specific clip out of that, and you're going to base it on that, it's not a good thing. We've invited people to come down here. We have a beautiful theater to meet the people and just talk about them in forums like this. I want people to know them, and whether you agree or don't agree, you're going to see a more personal side. So we've encouraged both parties to come out and take advantage of our forum. It's really valuable. I've had people come down to listen to people, and they said, I really did not like that person or agree with them. I saw a completely different side than I read about or, to your point, saw on a little newsfeed or Instagram.
Nevada's growing, and so you sit here and go, well, how many people have been here for how long or whatever? It's like, hey, we in Nevada have always been used to being able to be in the same room with people that we, want the responsibility, that want our votes. And it's like, it allows you to take face-to-face the measure of the girl or guy, and it's like, listen, it's proved pretty good, as opposed to my euphemism. When you hear me say talking points, whether it's Republican, Democrat, Independent, it's like, well, talking points are not, well, what do you think about, global warming or whatever, or public land sales in the state where the feds own 80% of it, and blah, 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 and all that. So you can have that chance to go, here's my unvarnished opinion about that question.
I love that.
And that doesn't come across on the national talking point machine.
No, because it doesn't sell.
Yeah,
that's like, you don't talk about Girl Scout cookies. They don't want to hear that. They want to try and get their clicks, and they want to hit their Facebook hits and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to switch gears real quickly, just talking about you. So when you're not flying your DC or you're here, what do you like to do? Do you mind sharing with people? What is something you go, all right, here is something that I like to do that might surprise people, but just more of a personal thing?
I'm a yard work guy. I putter, is the phrase that I grew up with. Putter in the yard, does lawn need fertilized, what's going on with the flower beds, blah, blah, blah. I live on a 90 by 110 subdivision lot, which the house was built originally in like 1965. And so I putter around the house, got to do this, what about that sort of thing. And I also like my garage. I have an 1,100 square foot garage, which I tell people to, well, you got to get a security system. And I go, for the garage, that's where all the good stuff is, in my mind. But, I grew up, my dad, worked on, not for a living, but it's like, hey, if something was broke, you try to fix it. And so between my garage and my yard, yeehaw, I like history.
Yeah, me too.
And this area is so rich in history from prehistoric to present to where, this is about history where we're at. And so, just kind of down to earth stuff. You'll see me doing my own, I give my daughters a bad time. I go, are you using that Insta, whatever the heck? I says, get off your butt and go down to the grocery store and do your grocery shopping. Although I think it's like, maybe it's kind of they're going, yeah, you can go down there when the loser sale's on or something like that. But I mean, just regular taking care of stuff, you know.
No, but see, that's important. I'm the same way. My wife always knows that I'm stressed when I go out there and I'll do something, weed or whatever it might be. I go, that's my therapy.
Yep.
I like to putter around and do all that kind of stuff. And the place we had a little bit more land at one time, and she used to laugh because every time I would get stressed, I go out there and I try and make a new path or something. She goes, uh-oh, there's like a whole freeway here by the time he's done.
I'm a big firewood guy. You're like, well, you burn a lot of wood. It's like, no, not really. I just like, chainsaw, splitting it, whatever. I give most of it away, but it's like that's my fly fishing.
Yeah, no, it's good therapy for everybody.
Yep, it sure is for me.
So just a couple more questions before we wrap up. What is something what advice would you give someone who's interested in going into politics, Congress, or any other facet? Is there anything specific that you would like them to take heart to?
If you're really into public service, absolutely. But it is public service. And so when it's one of those things where, well, I'm planning my next move, or I'm going to go here, and then I'm running for that, and I'm that, it's like, listen, unless your foundation, in my opinion, unless your foundation is public service, and let me tell you what, if it is, that makes it a lot easier. So it's like, if you really have a heart for public service, then by all means.
I like what you said earlier. If you think it's something that, I forget how you worded it, it's going to fluff up your portfolio, or if ego, whatever, take it off the shelf, because that's not gonna. Those boxes aren't going to be checked off.
Let me put it to you this way: if you think you're going to make money, you're either a crook or not very smart.
Yeah.
But that doesn't. That's fine. And so you got to have the heart of a public servant, and then the other stuff tends to take care of itself.
So what's next? What are you looking forward to most?
I'm looking forward to filling
Being
out.
in the garage?
I'm looking forward to filling out my application to join the Older I Get, the Better I Was club. And I answered, because most people, when you said, hey, I'm not going to, I think 15 years is about right. And they're going, are you okay? And it's like, well, do I look terminal? I mean, I'm going to be 68 in
But
June.
they wonder why.
Yeah.
It's the
And
first
so then
question.
they go, well, you must have some plan. And I said, a million years ago when I was a lawyer, I was taking a client in. We were in a deposition. Then, they start out with, what's your full name? Where do you live? What do you do for a living? Well, this guy was a sheep herder from Gardnerville, Nevada. And so the guy on the other side started, and he said, state your full name. And then he says, where do you live? And then he says, well, Mr. Jacobson, what do you do for a living? And then my client says, as I damn well please. And we both kind of laughed. I go, man, that's a great answer. And so it's like, here I am, fast forward, 45 years or whatever. And it's like, that's my answer. It's like, I don't have any plans. I want to finish. I want to run through the back of the end zone through the end of the year on finishing this and the stuff we got going strongly. And then after that, it's like, hey, I got a house, I got a garage, I got a yard, might even get a dog again, and so that's about it.
That's great. That's great. I'm really grateful you took the time to visit us today, and thank you for sharing what you did with us and our audience. For people who are watching here today, we encourage you to get more connected. You're going to go strong towards the, what'd you say, cross the end zone? And
run through the back of the end zone.
Yeah, make sure. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you very much for everything you've done and your commitment to public service. And I hope you're not going to be a stranger here at the National Automobile Museum.
I won't be. Thank you for what you've done. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.